Hey guys, Coach Dan here. Now, the big question that has stood the test of time from I don't know how long ago is, which is the best Rocky movie? So I have my own bias, but I want people to comment below, which is your favorite Rocky movie? Now, I am happy to include the new age ones, post Rocky 5. You've got the Balboas, the Creeds, etc. They all come into the mix as well. I'm going to put mine out there. The early ones, 1 and 2, very, very good. But the one that sticks out to me, number 4, where he goes to Russia and defeats, is it Dolph Lundgren, whatever his name is, the big Russian. Now, what I find so sensational about that particular movie is that he doesn't box at all in all of his training in Russia. He's simply putting a log on his back, running through snow. He's doing sit-ups and stuff like that with someone punching him on the guts. No pain, no pain, no pains, that famous line. So I think that's pretty impressive that he went and took that guy. Favorite part of the movie, where they're well into the fight, and then in the big Russian's corner, in Russian, it's obviously, you've got subtitles, it's translated. He goes, "He is not a man, he is a piece of tin." Oh, that gets you jacked up, Like, that is proper hectic. So anyway, comment favorite Rocky movie below. They're all open. Set us if you you haven't seen some of the early ones. Get into that. That's really nice motivational kind of stuff. On that note, no, not on that note. Something to reiterate from something I was sort of discussing a couple of weeks back is, and what has now become really front of mind to me, is the importance of the 3 Ps, I like to call them, which is prioritizing, planning, and preparing. So I've recently taken on a new role as a strength and conditioning coordinator at a local high school. And the idea, again, these 3 Ps has been really important in this regard because, still want to obviously prioritize training. But not only that, then my wife also has to prioritize training. We have to plan for it. We have to prepare for it. So those 3 Ps set a good framework for the importance. Like, is it still important enough for us to continue to get our exercise plan is? And if yes is the answer, okay, now we've got to plan for it. Who's going to do this? When are we going to do it? Who's got to pick our daughter up from daycare? All these kinds of things. So you've got the plan, and then you've got to prepare to hit that plan. Have your equipment ready. I've got to go from the gym to the school, back to the gym. Like, I've got to have all the gear there ready to go for everything that I need to do. So that just, reiterates the importance of prioritizing, planning, and preparing. So just wanted to put that one out there. We're going lower body workout today. So this one continues on from last week. We've got hack squats. If you're someone who's done RDLs or Romanian deadlifts with the dumbbell or the bar or anything like that, and you're looking for a bit of a mix-up, we've got a really good Smith machine posterior chain variation called the Smith machine Good Morning. So we'll go through that in full detail when we get there. So good workout. Again, we're having to get things in. We're having to prioritize, plan, and prepare to get it all done, right? So it's a bit of work, but again, if it's an important enough thing to you, we make it happen, right? All right, we're going hack squats first. Time to show that hack squat machine that I am not a man, I am a piece of tin. I wonder if it's possible to watch every single Rocky movie in the one weekend. I might tell my wife to husband herself and my daughter to father themselves for this weekend so I can put that time aside. Anyway, hack squats first. So, big thing about the hack squats is it's such a brutal and tough machine that people will often want to make it easier by changing technique or making the rep not as deep, so not going through as large a range of motion. So we don't want to do that, even if it means making the weight quite light. We want to expose the legs to as much tension as possible. So as usual, I've got my yoga blocks because I'm short. I will set my feet lowish on the platform, toes pointing out works for me. And again, we're just exposing the quads to the tension, so nice control, lots of knee flexion, up from there. Feeling the tension in the quads the whole time. So we go 3 sets on this today. Doing pretty well with doing a heavy set at the beginning, so one is going to be 6 to 8 reps. I'll reduce a little bit of load, then go up to 10 to 15 reps for the last 2 sets. That's worked quite well for me for the past month or so. So I was just checking in on my program before. This is actually week 12. So I think that's something to keep in mind, is that programs don't need to be just arbitrarily changed after 3 months, 6 months, whatever it might be. You kind of use things until they don't work anymore in some capacity, if they've been working really well or there's something not quite right. So you don't just change the hack squat because it's been 3 months. It's like, I'm still making progress, carry on sometimes. Now, in the instance that you stop enjoying the movement, you get joint pain, stop making progress, doesn't feel as effective as it once was, yeah, sure, make tweaks, and I'm always making tweaks. But yeah, in the instance that it's still going well, joints feel good, you're making progress, still feels effective, just continue on, ride the wave. We want to keep that progress because there might come a stage where that progress halts. And when it halts, then we want some room to kind of go to new stuff, right? Okay, so let's build up to our heavy set of 6 to 8, a little bit of an increase from last week. We'll see how we get on. All right, hack squat's done, so increase weight on that first set this week, but performance dropped, or at least the reps dropped off. So next week's back to that same weight. See if I can get the rest back up. Whew, brutal. Not sure if I told this machine who is the tin, but legs feel pretty jacked up. So I'm the winner. All right, let's go. Next, Smith machine, good morning. So mentioned at the beginning, you've been doing RDLs for ages, you love them. You've done barbell, dumbbells, all the other stuff, but you're sort of looking for another variation. This can be a good change up. This is called the Smith machine, good morning. This can be done with a bar as well. I like the Smith machine for stability's sake, so it keeps me nice and stable. Don't have to worry about balance or anything else like that, right? So we've got the Smith machine bar, set the feet pretty much directly underneath that. Sometimes it can be a little bit behind that, that's cool. Bar on the back, like a standard squat or anything like that. Hips hinge back. Bracing the back. Oh, the midsection as tight as possible to keep your back stable. Feel that deep hamstring stretch. And then coming up from there. So, same sort of motion as the RDL or stiff-legged deadlift or whatever variation you've been doing. Loading's a little bit different. Obviously the bar is now on your shoulders and it's going forward, well, not going forward, but it's then forward of your hips, whereas the bar stays a lot closer if it's a dumbbell or a stiff-legged deadlift. So 3 sets. I like 5 to 10 with this one. Anything too much heavier than that, and I just find my back gets a little bit fatigued. So lowish reps for this one for me is usually pretty good. All right, building up to our working weight, and then we're on. That's the Smith machine. Good morning. So again, a good replacement RDLs, whether you've been doing a bar, dumbbell for a long period of time. This gives us that similar hip hinging movement. So hamstrings, glutes, good workers here. Bars on the back, so that's a little bit different. You can just change it up that little bit to kind of make it fresh again, and then you can add the RDLs and stuff like that back in later. So I think too many more than 10 reps here for me is a bit high just for back fatigue. So 5 to 10, even 6 to 8, a little bit of lower rep range to keep your back nice and chill. All right, hip thrust next. Getting us a bit of extra glute volume without loading the back. So we come off of something like a hack squat. Smith machine, good morning. They're pretty systemically fatiguing. So there's weight and it's on you and it's pretty hard and heavy. So to get an exercise like this in, just get that glute work in without that bar on you or anything like that, can be helpful. Again, both those exercises use my glutes. But again, just sort of capping off a little bit of volume without any more stress on my spine. So we have a hip thrust machine here, but a bar would do fine here. Feet position's important. So if you are doing this and you feel your hamstrings, it's probably that your feet are far out in front of you. If you feel your quads, it might be because they're too in close to you. So it's about finding that sweet spot for you. About shoulder width apart, I do, toes slightly out. Thingy comes down, thrust up, sink under control. Squeeze the butt. I like to think about looking directly ahead, just stops anything from moving in my upper back or back at all. So getting the glutes working, a little bit of hemis in there as well, which is not the worst thing in the world. Only 2 sets here, 10 to 15. We've got a weight increase this week, so that's pretty cool. Vámonos, amigos. Alright, hip thrust done. So good problem to have, but kind of filling up this machine weight-wise. I think one of the disadvantages to the hip thrust machine versus a barbell is the resistance. So because it works on a hinge, it's probably quite hard at the top versus the bottom. Whereas a standard bar will be the same difficulty all the way because gravity's pushing down on you. So if you have 40 kilos in the bar and you're thrusting straight up, it's pretty much 40 kilos straight down. Here, it's on a hinge. So the fact that the weight that we add to the machine's out here, and then also it hinges down here like this, it's not harder till this is in line with this again. So those hinging kind of machines where they're like that and they're made like that, it's potentially the opposite of what we want. We sort of want it to be harder at the bottom and then easier at the top. But I cannot be arsed setting up a bar at the moment, but getting strong on this one, so might have to move there if I want to keep the hip thrust alive. Anyway, we'll figure that out at a later date. Okay. The leg extension is about to pop off, as the kids say. Now, before we pop off on it, something to consider is that all people are different. So if you're ever thinking you must do an exercise, that's not true. You can find so many different exercises out there that suit you. The way to go about doing it would be what a term that's coined the stimulus to fatigue ratio. So if you get a high stimulus for an exercise, but a low fatigue cost, it's actually a good thing. And you might think, oh, that's a bit soft, like fatigue is part and parcel. And that is true.
but you don't want the fatigue to be excessive. And fatigue would come under, yeah, it's just a tiring exercise, but any joint issues or stress or anything like that. So we use this stimulus to fatigue ratio to kind of go, well, that's a better exercise for me. Even if someone says, these are the must-do exercises, got to do this for gains, blah, 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 blah. No. We find what suits you with the best stimulus to fatigue. So it targets a muscle we want to target with little stress on joints and just generally as little overall fatigue cost as possible. Now you might get an exercise with high level of stimulus and a high fatigue, and maybe you bite the bullet because it is so effective. But when the fatigue is really high, stimulus is low, you piss that off straight away. Okay, with all that said, we're going to leg extension. So again, back rest set all the way back. Again, we're trying to open up the hip flexor on this, or the hip, because one of the quad muscles is a hip flexor. And when we lean back like this, we get to stretch it out a little bit more. I've got the yoga blocks here for hopefully a little bit extra range. Right, crank it all the way forward. I don't really need to do a massive warm up because I am warm, so I'll do one set close to the weight. So we lock in, lean back, squeeze the quads, stretch the quads. High rep range here, 10 to 20, only 2 sets though. Okay, so leg extension and quads done. We got machine abduction. So again, potentially one of the functions of the glutes is that they kind of come up and attach your pelvis and then kind of wrap to the side a bit. So mostly their action is probably hip extension. So going from here to here, squats, leg presses, hip thrusts, etc. But potentially some of it, this abduction movement is also glute dominant. So just doing it to make sure we tick that box. Quads are pumped after the leg extension, so 2 sets there, 2 sets here. I like a high rep range here, so it'll be 10 to 20, burn them up. We've got the yoga blocks here for extra range. The other thing I do that is somewhat unique is leaning forward, hands against the machine, and again, this just gets that extra stretch in the glutes. So knees drive out, control the way in, tap, knees drive out. So good stretch because we're leaning forward. Good stretch because we got the yoga blocks as well. 2 sets, 10 to 20, cap off the glutes. This is kind of the stage of the workout last week where I sort of started to get a little drifted away. So time to refocus and finish off strong. Here we go. All right, finishing off with some abs and calves. So I'd normally do this as a superset, but the other machine is taken. The gym's a little bit busier today. So I'm gonna do a leg raise off of the GHD. I like doing this on the GHD because this curve kind of sets where your lower back, your natural curve is. And again, the idea is to not just raise your legs, but flex or tilt your whole pelvis up and down like this. The rectus abdominis attaches into the pelvis basically and in the bottom of the sternum. So we don't just want to leg raise, because that would be hip flex, and again, if you keep going, you'll get your abs as well, but you also want to tip this whole thing. So set the lower curve, grab this, focus on tipping the whole thing up, stretch, tip. So it's kind of this motion there, up like this, down like this, up like this. I'm doing 5 sets. Like I said, this would normally be a superset, but cuff is unavailable, so we'll go single set and then we'll go over there after.
All right, that's a wrap on the workout, guys. Another brutal one. Legs again. Each week we've got to come back and try and get better. It's pretty rough. But yeah, the thing to keep in mind from the introduction of the video is let's watch all the Rocky movies this week. No, I'm just kidding. It's prioritizing, planning, and preparing, right? So you got to make sure that if you're a busy person, that again, if your fitness health is as a high priority for you, prioritize it. It's got to have its own spot in your day or your week or whatever it might be. You got to plan for it. If you're a busy person, you got work, you got family, stuff like that, you got to plan for that to be your block of time. If you have a partner who also wants to stay active, you got to plan for you both to kind of mix and match and make it a priority between the two of you. It's not easy, but again, if it's a high priority, we can make it happen. There are things like creches these days. You know, if you're spending lots of time doing things that maybe you wouldn't say is a priority, you can kind of reorientate that time towards your health and fitness and stuff like that. So it's, yeah, prioritizing, planning, preparing to make it happen, especially when you get busy in this world, because otherwise things will just take over and we'll never get to it, right? So keep that in mind going forward. Remember, it's all about progress over perfection. Coach Dan, signing off.